I pledge allegiance to this flag. And if that bothers you, well, that's too bad. But if you got pride and you're proud you do, hey, we could use some more like
Welcome to Common Sense Radio. This is Lana for course, live broadcasting from beautiful Colorado Springs today. Hope everyone had a blessed Thanksgiving, enjoyed family and friends, and ate way too much, right? Did everybody eat way too much? Because I know I did. Getting right into it. We're not going to waste any time because we have an hour, and an hour is never long enough. And we want to get into the City for Champions proposal. Just for the record, I want to, this show is about truth and fact, and we have reached out to Mayor Bach's office and have asked him to come on the show, to come and call in, and we have had, as of today, we've had zero response. So I'm just letting you know that we have reached out to Mayor Bach's office, and he has denied to come on the show. In studio today, we are happy to have Joel Miller, one of our city council members who believes in transparency and accountability and who fights for Colorado Springs every day. Thank you, Joel, for doing what you do, and thanks for being in the show with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Bill Murray is back with us. Bill Murray, 32-year veteran in the military. Bill is an amazing guy, research extraordinaire, and he is currently a cyber exercise planner for the U.S. Army.
Hooah.
Hooah. Hooah. That's the answer to everything. Hooah. Yes, no, maybe. And then, of course, we have Jason Han. Jason is our community rock star.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Running for president eventually. And Jason seriously has been an amazing research guy behind this whole City for Champions proposal. He's a strategic organizational development and also a motivational speaker. Jason's amazing. And our very own Kanda Califf. Kanda, why don't you just take us away right now with starting out with City Council member Joel Miller.
Yes, today, instead of doing Candace Corner, I am going to interview Council member Joel Miller because I have seen a lot of talk on the Facebook and in my emails about the new utility rate increase. So, Joel, thank you so much for coming today and agreeing to do this. There are some people that would say that a rate increase is equivalent to a tax increase because we don't have free market competition on utilities in the state of Colorado. As such, why would you, a conservative, vote for a rate increase?
Well, I think what's really important to note is that it could be a tax increase. The fortunate way that things are set up for governance for our utilities is that you have an elected board. We have a board that's accountable directly to the people through the election process. So you're right. It could be used as a tax if political agendas were allowed to be the governing board. And so because we are having a governance that is an elected body, you have direct accountability over the utilities.
Well, now, why was this utility increase needed? Were there certain factors that you looked at? Did you guys just peruse over the budget? Did you see it line item? Or what were you given and what did you do?
Well, first of all, let me say that this utilities board and the city council has created a couple of new committees to look at things like the utilities budget and like the city budget. And so we do have a finance committee for utilities, and we began looking shortly after the committee was formed back in June or July, and we went through the budget over months, much more detail than any recent history of any utilities board. I believe last year's utilities board deliberated over the budget for less than an hour.
Oh, yeah. I was there. It was pathetic. They didn't even look at it. They didn't see anything, and it was horrible.
So we directed the utilities staff, and they were very cooperative to give us a much greater level of detail than we saw and were given from the city in doing the city budget. And we went through it. We had general managers there talking to us about specific projects. We looked at line items, and largely the increase, and I'm not going to say that I'm happy about an increase. Nobody would be. Making an increase to the cost of living is not a good thing for our citizens. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of federal mandates, and a lot of this year's electric rate increase is a direct result of federal mandates and providing scrubber technology on our coal-burning power plants, the Martin Drake power plant and the Nixon power plant. And although the rate increase is regrettable and it's due to these requirements, the alternative is far more expensive. I'll just give you a quick example on price. Price per megawatt hour is approximately $22 an hour at Martin Drake power plant. The closest equivalent, if we were to go to a gas-fired power plant, would be nearly double that. So yes, it is an unfortunate increase, but it's the best option financially, and it's regrettable to have that increase. But I feel like this Utilities Board and the Finance Committee did a good job. We're going to continue to look for efficiencies, and we're going to continue to try to cut any way we can. And it's interesting to know, and it's important to know, that there were $50 million cut out of the budget as originally proposed this year. So there is being close scrutiny, and there's been a lot of close inspection over what is really needed. Do we have to do this?
Well, I've seen and heard a lot of complaints that the Colorado Springs Utilities fleet of vehicles are brand new. So a lot of small business owners are having to make do with 12-plus-year-old vehicles. Is it true that the utilities fleet of vehicles are all new? And if so, why?
Well, they're certainly not all new. As a matter of fact, I have reams of data that was presented by utilities on the age of their vehicles, and on data that shows that at a certain break-even point, it costs more to maintain older vehicles than to purchase new ones. So all of that's costed out. There's been no wholesale purchase of all new utility vehicles. In fact, some of the specialized equipment is from many years ago, 20 and 20 years and older, on the special equipment that is going to help you reach the transformers up on the line, or digging lines, or excavating. All those things are specialty utility infrastructure, and they have to be maintained. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to provide reliable power and gas and water and wastewater.
Well, I'd like to talk about the employees' salaries. People in specialized industries are sought after to work in different companies and organizations. And since companies don't want to lose their specialized workers, the market dictates what salaries will keep employees from leaving their company. I would say that a utility is comparable to any company in that they are competing for the best employees in their industry and don't want to lose those employees to other utility companies. So are Colorado Springs Utilities employees compensated at a comparable rate to other utilities?
Well, the 2014 budget does include a modest salary increase for some of the non-executive employees. And it was a study that was conducted by a third party that looked at the industry averages, and there was a preponderance of utilities employees below that average, and it was based on comparable utility sizes in comparable areas of the country. And it's not a process where you can just hire a brand new employee off the street and go up to a high voltage line and replace a transformer. These are people that take 10 or 7 to 10 years to get full training to be able to do some of these tasks. There's an apprenticeship, and it's very closely monitored by utilities, and there's a training program. So when you lose a utilities employee because he went up to Denver to work for Xcel, for a company who's not accountable to their taxpayers, then you have a 7-year process to replace that employee. And I think it's real important to have well-trained and at least competitively, minimally competitive rates for those employees.
Well, you mentioned Xcel, and some people would say that we should sell our citizen-owned utility to a corporation like Xcel Energy to outsource it. Now, I'm all for outsourcing of industries that government doesn't control as well as the private industry. But that said, if we were to sell our utility to Xcel, we would not be increasing competition or reducing the rates because all utilities in the state are government-run monopolies. So I take real issue when people say, oh, Xcel is going to save us money. This is something I think that I have seen being pushed by a few people in this city. Would you think it's a fallacy that Xcel Energy is going to save us money? What has been your experience and your research?
Well, I think the best option is control over our utilities. One thing to keep in mind is we control our own power plants and the amount of power that's generated. You look at some of these areas that are dependent on third-party power, they are now subject to the whim of those companies and what their priorities are. If we have a hot day, we're not going to have a blackout in Colorado Springs because we own the utility, we own the generation capacity, and we're not going to prioritize to give it to some other region. And so having control of our own utility is by far, I think, financially, and financially it is, but there's also beyond the financial side of it, there is an important piece, and that is that we're in full control.
Now, I've heard the mayor make statements and take issue with the fact that the utility pays a lot of money for public relations. Now, I understand he has a public relations staff, if I understand, for one person. Why do you think he's taking issue with money for public relations for the utilities, and what is their function? Should we have that in the budget?
Well, first of all, it's really important to note that there is a function for public relations, and people try to say it's advertising, and I'm going to look at that, and I think the Finance Committee is going to look at that, but there are some really important things that we get word out to people, and things that are related to safety. For example, digging in your yard. Excuse me, without getting your utilities marked and hitting a gas line and sparking something with your shovel. You've got to have it marked. So you need to get the word out of people on how to do that. You need to talk to people about lighting pilot lights if they smell gas, about what to do if you smell gas in your home, about the quality of the water that you and your family are drinking. And beyond that, it's corporate communications. If you buy stock in a company, there's corporate communications that are providing information to the shareholders. And we are all shareholders of Colorado Springs Utilities. So there's important information that we need to have on the quality of our water, on the business of our utility that is being provided to people. So there is an important role. That's not to say it can't be looked at and won't be looked at with further scrutiny.
Now, I heard that the mayor was mentioning the utility rate increase on another radio program, which I won't mention. Why do you think the mayor is mentioning utility rates when that is the only enterprise that he doesn't control in this city?
Well, it is interesting that he would mention the utilities rates because there are a few policies that he's actually advocated that would lead to even higher utility rates.
Well, you know, I know we're going to be going to a break here in a second, so I'd like to hit on that when we come back. And also, I'd like to talk about your former, what did we call him or her? An opponent that is going on Facebook and saying you're a utilities pick, and that's why you won. So when we come back, we're going to be talking about those two things, and then we're going to discuss the City for Champions, which I know you all are looking forward to.
And we are the champions. Remember, we're the champions. We don't need a city for champions because we are the champions. Before we went to the break, we were touching on Joel's, what do you call that when somebody was in office and they're no longer there and they were ousted by 51% of the vote?
Sore loser?
Okay, that's a good one. That would be the person in District 2, and her name was Angela Dugan. And Angela on Facebook yesterday commented how how Joel is bought, that he was bought and paid for. And I am looking at 2 sheets of paper right now from contributions for Angela Dugan. The Broadmoor Hotel, the Housing and Building Administration, which is the HBA, Susie Bach, which is Mayor Bach's wife, Comcast Cable, Norwood Executives, the Police Protection Association. That's the PPA, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Elite Properties, Freeze Construction. This goes on. This list goes on. Let's see Joel Miller's contributions. David Miller, his brother. Brian Miller, his other brother. Tanya Miller, his mother. And I am and him, Joel Miller himself. So, you know what? This is unbelievable. He won that race in District 2. People were sick and tired of what Angela was saying, doing, and they were also tired of her being the mayor's pawn. And so, you know what? This is what people are pushing back on, and this is why Joel Miller won in District 2.
Amen.
Amen, Jason. So let's get right to City for Champions. And let's talk about how great this amazing proposal is, how many times it's changed. Bill, Jason, Joel, this is you guys. You tell us what's going on. Tell our listeners.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, first of all, we were graciously invited, not really, to attend a conference where the city released the new and improved City for Champions environment application. It seemed that the first application didn't go quite as well as expected, and instead of getting the multi-millions of dollars, they got less than half of it. So what a good gambler does when he's losing, he doubles down.
I think that's a pretty safe analysis. I look at it coming from a long line of RFP and contract work. I look at it from an analysis of how accurate was that initial proposal based upon the third-party analysis. And I know that all of us sitting in the room, we're not fans of the City for Champions proposal, but this is a third-party analysis that comes in and says, how much of an impact is this really going to have? And when your result is 1/3 approximately of what we're asking for, and there's all kinds of things that are thrown out of the proposal initially, that tells me just how erroneous and pie-in-the-sky dreams this proposal really was.
Well, and to market, let's get into that really quick.
Sure.
To market it, to talk about how great this thing was. We were at the Convention Visitors Bureau, right?
Yeah, the CVB.
And the CVB. We were there, and they put on this amazing video. How much did that cost? We found out
$19,000.
$19,000 to put on this video to sell us this proposal, to sell us the marketing.
Absolutely.
It's one thing to sell it to us. It's another thing to look at the entire plan and say, let's look at the data and let's see if this works.
And the CVB is getting $2.6 million a year from us, the city taxpayers. So that should be looked at. $19,000 for a PR campaign for Mayor Bach's vision and his pipe dream. And then we have a bus that's going to be transporting proponents that the CVB is paying for to go up to Denver.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's right, because that's on December 4th.
Yes.
Okay, that's something that's regards to Colorado Springs, something that's in regards to things that will affect our own residents. Right here, we're going to have to go to Denver.
On a Wednesday morning.
On a Wednesday morning when people work at 9 a.m. Okay.
Right. And I think there's a huge issue there. Pete Sherman, the gentleman that actually produced the video, said that when he looked at the numbers, he thought that he could put that video together in 30 days. 30 days work, and he got paid $19,000. Now, if I'm a video producer, I don't mind taking that job, but that doesn't mean that I buy into it either. It tells me that if you have to sell something that hard, I mean, that's why commercials and market segments get paid millions and millions of dollars during the Super Bowl, because you've got a big audience and they're trying to influence you through propaganda. Jariah Walker, a young professional here in the community, stood up and even said, I really think this is something we should get behind because it shows potential. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't want my tax dollars going to potential. I would like my tax dollars, if they're spent on anything, to go to solid data, research, and a project plan. And I think that's really what all of us have been doing, is just asking those questions. And I really commend Joel. He's taken a ton of hits online in the PR world just for asking the questions. And one of the things that I think the message has been consistent with all of us is it's not that we're against City for Champions, it's that we're for doing it the right way.
Correct.
And that's where all of us stand on our soapbox and say, this could have been an effort that unified the community, and that strong leadership, which Mayor Bach has never shown, could have unified the community and got everybody behind it. Because you know what? Successful projects like this work only when the community backs it. And guess what? That's one of the RFP requirements, is it has to have regional buy-in and support, and we are missing that.
Right.
Well, I think the other thing that people like the idea of is it's a grand vision. We don't have any vision for this city and where it's going. Let me remind you of another grand vision. It's called Obamacare. And there was a great grand vision to restructure a sixth of our economy. And you can see what's happening, how it's just, it's a nightmare with what's happening to people and their families and our economy. And so along with Obamacare, remember we heard from Nancy Pelosi, you got to pass the bill to see what's in the bill. Mm-hmm. We keep getting told that we've just got to get the state money. We got to get the state money, and then we'll talk about those little pesky details about who's going to own the stadium. Who's going to operate the stadium? Who's going to build it? Who are the financial beneficiaries?
And
we're not supposed to
who's
talk.
Who's going to pay for it?
And exactly. This is now over $250 million project. And the State Tourism Act was sponsored by liberal Democrat Angela Hiron, who was recently ousted because she refused to listen to her people about the Second Amendment. Well, it should be no surprise she was a sponsor for this bill that promotes big government projects. And so here we have a huge big government project. This is not a gift, it's an obligation. It's a $250 million obligation. There's no check written by the state. We get no free money, and we have a potential to earn a certain amount of our sales tax revenue back. And if they've got so much sales tax revenue, how about they just lower our state sales tax rate?
Exactly.
At the tune of only like $1 million a year for the next 30 years.
That's right.
But that's a great question, Joel. Very good question.
Very good question. We're going to be going to a break in just a little bit, but I was going to talk about two things. We were going to talk about the Cora request when we get back. Because we printed it in the newspaper. So in Common Sense News, by the way, that hits the shelves right now, it's all over town, 1,500 locations, all the King Supers. Make sure you go out and pick up your paper today. We have the actual letter that we got for a Cora request, and we printed the letter that Mayor Bach sent to Mr. Ken Lund. And we're going to talk about that when we get back. We're going to talk about the Gazette, the Anschutz family, the Broadmoor, Norwood, HBA, Downtown Partnership. They all just kind of mix, and they all just fit into the same bucket.
The click.
So we're going to get back to that when we come back.
A fabulous Village 7 coffee location has reopened. The Copper Creek is back as Mountain Grounds Coffee House at 3315 West Carefree Circle. Mountain Grounds Coffee House features the aroma and comfort of European cafes. But it gets better. At Mountain Grounds Coffee House, the beans are locally roasted, the flavored syrups are all natural, and fruit flavorings are homemade, while the pastries are fresh daily from a local pastry and cake shop. How about a fresh vanilla, almond, or hazelnut latte, prepared with Umpire Estate Mountain Roasters beans? For atmosphere, Mountain Grounds Coffee House features free Wi-Fi and big band swing and track records played on a real record player. Feel free to bring your own vinyl. Mountain Grounds Coffee House is now open at 3315 West Carefree Circle. Fresh coffee, new ownership, a coffee experience. Mountain Grounds Coffee House.
Alrighty, we are back to Common Sense Radio. You know, I'm sorry. You know, I'm looking at this list, and I left off one of Angela Dugan's contributors, which is the RBA, the Regional Business Alliance. And it says, we assume it's the PAC, but it's from the RBA, and that's how it's listed. So, you know, I just have a problem with cronyism. I think that's where, and I have a problem with rubbing each other's backs. And, you know, Joel ran for this position, and he ran to run for city council because he wanted to do something for the citizens. He wanted to be a servant leader and say, you know, pick me, choose me, I'm going to go, and not drink the Kool-Aid and look into the rabbit holes and figure out what's going on. And a lot of these politicians that we have right now, they're in because they get their backs rubbed. Someone along the way has done this, and we know that. That's how politics works. That's what lobbying is. Lobbyists do. But you know, we're going to stop this because we're gonna call you out on the carpet when we see that you've done that. So we're gonna get right back into when I went to the break. We were talking about the Gazette, and how they've been attacking Joel. They're also owned by the Anschutz family, who owns the Broadmoor Hotel. They also support City for Champions with this event center. When there are the Pikes Peak Center and the World Arena.
Mostly unused.
Yes, right, exactly. But you're going to compete with private sector again. So I'm going to take this back over to Kanda. And Kanda, why don't you ask your questions that we were discussing on our break?
Well, I know that both of us, actually, Lana, were testifying about the city council defunding the Regional Business Alliance because they do make political endorsements. They're really a lobbying special interest group, and we're paying as citizens for them to lobby their own special interests. It makes no sense. And so, Joel, weren't you the one who brought that motion, if I remember correctly?
Well, I've been pretty vocal about it. I have no issues with the Regional Business Alliance. I think they perform an important role, but ultimately, right now, they're a political organization. They get behind political candidates, political issues, they make endorsements, and even though they have a separate PAC, their board of directors acts on those endorsements, and so there's really no line between their political activities and their economic development activities. And so I've been very vocal about making sure that if the public is going to fund this through their tax dollars or through their utility rates, that they're, in my view, any political activity is not fair game for public financing. So either they say goodbye to their political activities or separate it off into a separate entity, or they say goodbye to the funding.
And this group is behind City for Champions, isn't that correct?
They are. And, again, there are a number of issues they get behind and candidates they get behind. And everyone says, well, this is just how we've done it for I don't know how many years. Their predecessor used to be the Economic Development Corporation and the Chamber of Commerce, but now it's combined into the Regional Business Alliance. And this is just how we always do it. We don't look to see who's the best person to provide for marketing and bringing and recruiting of other businesses here. We just say it's their job. That's what they do. We don't ask them to compete, and we don't cite why they're the sole source and nobody else on the planet could possibly do it better or cheaper.
This is Bill Murray. During the last election, I was a member of the RBA, and I formally requested that they release all the answers to the questions that they sent all the candidates. Joe Ruzzo personally refused. He not only refused it to me as a member, but he refused it to the public. So you really don't know what the candidates said to get their endorsement.
Wow.
Well, and I've seen the actual questionnaire, and a lot of those questions to me were, and I'm just going to be blunt because that's what I am, is, are you going to be a pawn of the mayor's? If so, yes, you may get our endorsement.
Well, this is Jason, and I think that it's our voice as a community has been kind of heard. Like, how many people that the RBA endorsed actually got reelected or put into office? I think that speaks volumes as to the power that the community has in being able to be an informed public and then put people in that into position that do have the public's best interest at heart. And it's a dynamic change. Most people are not used to that because they were the figureheads and the power in the community, and now that's starting to switch. And you're seeing it with City for Champions, you're seeing it with rates, you're seeing it with endorsements on political candidates, and I think that's an amazing thing. So for everybody that's out there listening, thank you. Stay involved. Read the proposal, and if you have questions, contact one of us that are speaking today. We'll gladly give you the facts and the details, not a private agenda.
I do want to input on their success rate because they touted that as one of their materials that they gave to council and the utilities board, that they had an 82% success rate on their endorsement.
For political candidates?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
That's a bold-faced lie.
Andy Pico is my representative, is my city council rep in my district. And Andy's done okay. He's done pretty good. I went to his town hall the other night. I was very, very proud of Andy. I thought Andy answered questions very well. And because I was considering a run for city council. And so when I was thinking about running, I had gone to the first meeting at the HBA. And I was given the packet of questions. And I remember looking at this packet, and it was basically everything had to do with the mayor. Everything.
Insert puppet string 1 into
Yes.
slot A. Yes.
Yes. Do you love Mayor Bach? Do you want to be Mayor Bach's pawn? Is what it might as well have said. I have it. And it was unbelievable when I read this thing. I didn't even want to answer these questions. I thought I'm my own person.
Yes.
I will represent my district, not the interest of the mayor. So it was unbelievable. But anyway.
Well, and I think that to hit home back to the City for Champions discussion, that's exactly what the problem that we're having right now is that the power groups and the power silos that are out there, they're leveraging their influence within those channels to try and get people to buy into this ridiculous proposal. You cannot look at the data, the economic impacts, and the facts and figures that are in that report and then willingly say this is what's good for the community if you have any kind of economic understanding or strategic mindset. It's a fallacy.
Well, we're going to get ready to go to the break, but I want to really thank one of our amazing sponsors, a Village Pharmacy. If you guys have not, if you have, I know Obamacare is affecting a lot of people now. Copays are changing in prescriptions. If you have ideas or you don't have ideas about where you want to go take your prescriptions, you need to take them to a Village Pharmacy. They're located over on West Carefree at 3277 West Carefree Circle here in Colorado Springs. Their phone number is 596-2141. 596-2141. They're fabulous. Please check out a Village Pharmacy. We are the champions again. We're going to keep hounding on this, and we're going to keep hounding on this because we are the champions. And I want to kind of go into this whole proposal when it first started, and let's just break it apart real quick. Regional Tourism Act, right? The RTA. Regional, meaning the whole region. And we're only focusing pretty much on downtown. Am I correct? I mean, Air Force Academy, but there's already a visitor center.
And they're not too sure actually who would own that, how it would be managed. Is it federal? Is it local? But that's one of those things that Joel was mentioning. You just have to accept the proposal, and we'll figure out those details later. Oh,
okay. So we'll figure out. We'll just get the money. We're in the plan. I liked what Amy Lathan said, Commissioner Amy Lathan, when we were at the press conference that day. I have the entire video from her where she stood there and said, there's a lot of things that just don't make sense, but we just need to go ahead and get the funding. We're just applying for the funding, and then we'll figure it out.
Well, and some of the proponents have actually met with me privately and kind of personally. I do consider some of them still friends, even though we sit on both opposite sides of the table on this one. And one of the things that was brought to my attention was, are you willing to scuttle this opportunity for Colorado Springs just based upon principle and the fluff and the smoke and the mirrors and in the metrics? And I said, absolutely. Why wouldn't I want the details for my public dollars to be known prior to committing to that? And so that's the message that's going out to everybody is, if you're a bad citizen, if you don't support this, and that's absolutely wrong. You are a champion if you stand up like Joel has this entire time and ask those questions. It's much, much harder to stand up against the powers that be and say, this doesn't make sense. Can we come to the table and talk about it?
Well, Councilmember Joel Miller?
Well, I think, go ahead, Lon, I'm sorry.
How many jobs?
The latest depends on who you listen to. If it's the proponents, it's thousands and thousands. If you listen to what the third-party analysis says, is 487 jobs directly attributed to these projects.
And
487.
Jobs like professional jobs, like my husband who's an engineer could go get a job, or are we
It doesn't specify. It's 487 jobs, and then there's a few more that the third-party analysis said would be added because of related growth in certain sectors. But 487 jobs. Let's just look at what this is. This is a $250 million, mostly right now. There's no private funding committed in any amount, unless that's just hidden from all of us, which I'm not sure why it it would be, but there's been no private funding. So essentially this is now a $250 million public project for 487 jobs. And somehow we now think that if you're not for this, you're not for jobs. And somehow we forgot that this failed federal stimulus program that was supposed to create jobs was a miserable failure. And yet we're supposed to go back to the government and trust in this state and local version of the failed federal stimulus to create jobs. We've got a development up in the north part of Colorado Springs, and I think they're doing a great job. Bass Pro just opened,
right.
and 15,000 people on the very first day. 15,000 people. They've already hired 450 people. That's free market right there. They're going to have a water park, and they're going to make that a destination, and that's free market at work, creating jobs. Somehow we've gotten to the point where government's arrogant. We think we can do a lot better at creating jobs, and this $250 million stimulus program will fail at that, just as the $1 trillion federal stimulus program failed.
Well, and I think it's interesting to note that the city council has not written a letter in support of the City for Champions. They have not said anything vocally that they support it. There's been a couple of members that have supported it. And actually, I think those members were supported by the mayor, if I remember correctly, when they were going in their campaign. That said, what about the county commissioners? Haven't they committed something? Have they written a letter? What's going on with the county commissioners?
Jason, why don't you answer that one?
Well, when we sat in the CVB meeting the other day, I found it rather interesting when Amy stood up and said, we need to get this money so that we can start to go after the local money and get commitment from it. And what rang in my ears with that was part of the RFP requirement is the projects that are proposed in the RTA proposals are mandated to say they cannot move forward unless this stimulus money comes in. And that kind of struck me as odd because the UCCS medical tourism facility, that's already in their master plan. If you look in the UCCS master plan, there's a stadium in there.
Well, she didn't the lady that was talking on behalf of UCCS, didn't she say it was already in the works, but this is the RTA money would just further it faster.
Yeah, they're calling it an accelerator. And that's one of the things that really bothers me about that is that the county commissioners are committing to this type of thing, and they've lost sight of what the RTA is actually for. It is supposed to bring in tourism dollars, and whether or not we kind of agree with that being a needed thing for the community or not, they're committee money that they're not even allowed to commit.
But for the record, that was Commissioner Amy Lathan. However, Commissioner Darrell Glenn has not agreed to this. Am I correct?
Well, the first letter he did sign on to, my understanding is, but the second letter he thought better of it. And so I don't know exactly because it's all in executive session. So really we don't know. That's why citizens out there, you need to put pressure on your county commissioners. It doesn't matter who they are. They need to hear from you that you're not committed to spending all this money.
The secret stuff is making me crazy because we're the only city that has the United States Air Force Academy. We're the only city that has the Olympic Training Center. So would they stop the secret? Well, we have to do this and run this first because other cities will find out what we're doing. Enough with the secrets.
Right.
Well, let's just put it out there.
And that's one of the things that we hit on the very first show that we did was, the reasoning behind why everything had to be secret. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, both Bill and I have been in the RFP industry for several years, and there is some legitimacy to why you have your strategy quiet. But you know what? This is a community effort. This isn't something that's just done from the boys up on the hill, and that's exactly the way it was put out. So I've got the county letter here in front of us. Do we kind of want to read just the little blurb here?
Yes, go ahead.
If the application is awarded and accepted, the county will support an Olympic sports and events complex utilizing incremental sales tax revenue from the City for Champions projects. Well, I don't know about you guys, but that kind of steps outside of my comfort zone.
Well, let me tell you what that converted into in the in the second rendition of the application. While an increase in cost occurs when adding the indoor venue, this is a quote from the application, El Paso County has agreed to become a financial partner in making the Colorado Sports and Event Center a reality by pledging its local increase in tax revenues specifically from the RTA. Refer to the letter attached to this response to verify the statement.
Wow.
So we're on the hook now. So the city council didn't approve it, so they went to the county commissioners.
And the county commissioners said, oh, okay.
So they're buddies with the RBA and all these other people. So great.
Well, here's the thing that we keep hearing, too, is that, well, it's not really, it's just money that the RTA projects would be making. Ultimately, when you talk about incremental tax financing, it's complicated, but the bottom line is money that would normally go into the general fund to pay for things like public safety will now be diverted off to pay for these projects.
Well, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to keep going on the City for Champions. So stay tuned with Common Sense Radio.
Great segue.
And we're in our final segment of Common Sense Radio. And I wanted to just tell you guys, this Wednesday, the 4th of December, is a big meeting up in Denver. Joel, can you explain something to the listeners?
Yeah, sure. This is the so-called public hearing for the RTA proposal. And in it at 9 o'clock in downtown Denver on a Wednesday morning, they will have a opportunity for the applicants to present to the commissioners. This is the Economic Development Commission, why they deserve the free money from the state. That's not really free money. And after that hour-long presentation, they've generously offered the opportunity for citizens to have 3 minutes to testify against or for the project. This is public testimony. If you want to go there and testify, you have to get on their agenda. I do have on my website, it's Joel Miller, Colorado Springs CityCouncil.com. There's a call to action, City for Champions, and it lists a whole bunch of things you can do. One of them is to attend the state meeting, and it gives an email address about how to get onto the agenda. There's also a form there. If you don't have time in your busy life to go up there, you can fill out, and I promise I will hand deliver it to the commissioners up there.
Now, Jason, you had mentioned during the break that there was some commitment that the Sky Sox wasn't being moved downtown anymore. What's this about?
Yeah, when we were sitting at the CVB meeting the other day, Amy Lathan stood up and mentioned as part of the cheerleading session, we heard the community's outreach and cries to keep Sky Sox exactly where it is, and we're going to pull that out of there. So we've changed this proposal to include a generalized sports and multi-use function stadium. And yet the new proposal still has multiple references to minor league baseball, the 10,000-seat stadium downtown, and then references to how many actual visitors are going to come in. The proposed numbers for tourism for minor league baseball is roughly the entire community of Colorado Springs. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, next year, or for the next several years, you're all obligated to go to a Sky Sox stadium when it moves downtown so that they can meet their numbers.
Exactly. Joel?
I just want to, we talked a lot about the county commission. I just want to make sure that we give Daryl Glenn credit for standing up to this. He did not get behind this financial commitment, and he made that clear. The letter does state a majority, so we don't know who that majority is, but I did talk to Daryl and to Peggy Littleton, and it seemed like they were pretty opposed, and Daryl came out openly in a joint city council county commission meeting as opposing the project.
Yeah, and Dennis Heisey did
I knew Daryl.
Yeah.
But Dennis Heisey is for this.
Yeah, he was at the cheerleading session.
Of course he was at the cheerleading session, and so was Amy Lathan.
Dennis, Amy, and Sally, I believe, are the ones that are our proponents.
I am so glad to hear that Daryl, being my county commissioner that he's against it because I think our district doesn't agree with this. So,
And Peggy Littleton's mine, so I'm very
And
happy.
fellow Air Force Academy graduate.
yes.
There you go. There you go. But okay, so if you can go, if you have nothing better to do on a Wednesday morning at 9:00, you don't work, anything like that, and you have all the time in the world, please go to the Colorado Office of Economic Development, 1625 Broadway, Suite 2700. And
The meeting is downtown. It's at 1700 Lincoln Street.
It changed.
In the Hirschler room. So, yeah, you've got to, and you got to get on the agenda. There's an email address. It's listed in my,
unbelievable.
listed on my website.
And do not use the email address that's listed in the Gazette that was printed inaccurately.
Wow.
No.
Evidently.
On purpose.
We're absolutely sure that
Absolutely
the
on
Ansch- we're absolutely positive that the Anschutz newspaper did not mess that up. Of course not.
Unbelievable. Thank you all for being here today. This could go on forever, but we're going to be back next Saturday at 2 p.m. City for Champions. Go to commonsensenewsusa.com to read the latest on it, and please give us your feedback. Thank you for listening, and have a beautiful Saturday afternoon.